So today I have a text called We Are Unequal. Engineering students humble leader praises female peers feats. And the text is written by Megan Honora, and she's a feminist who also write a many texts about the human beings and gender oppressions. And I think that's a big part of why she's writing this text, but the mostly important writer of this text is of course Jerry Malden. Jill Mullen's background is actually that he's a college student who got concerned about how women were accepted in the college. And that's why he wrote this open letter that is today now an article with the open letter in it, so it's a non-fictional text. So I have a big concern while I was reading this text, and that is how women just accept of being a less important human being or gender, as you also can call it. But I also got very concerned about that many girls in high school from the 4th to 8th grade actually are a bit afraid of being in classes with boys, and that's because they want to take the class and show how they're doing their work, but the boys are actually very rude to them, and that's why I think that they're very scared of the day where they need to impress a teacher, and that's why they're not showing up. And that's a real big concern for me because I just think that every human has the right to be equal to the other humans, that we have the same experiences and we have the same values, but mostly boys don't like girls like they like the boys. So if we look through the contextual analysis, well, the text is of course a letter of an article, and the text is written by Megan Holhan. So the text medium is today, and that's like just any other newspaper, but on social platform. And the text is about the women are not being accepted because of their gender, and that is of course of the main theme called hypermasculinity. So how about this Jared Malden? Well, Jared Malden, who is a college student, he has a very strong argument through the whole text. He's using a lot of ethos through his experience of his groupmates actually just offending generate, and that's why he wants to make this letter to just show that many girls or women can actually be way smarter than men. So Generals was a girl he got very impressed over because she has a great math skills, but she also easily aced all her exams and she always mastered a concept after struggling with it just a few minutes. He also says that she knows so much that he will never ever get to that point where she is right now. And that's why he thinks that it's a bit concerning that many groups don't accept women's being in them because they see them as objects and not as humans being who is way smarter than them. So what? So why he's writing? Well, he's writing this to get to the intended audience, who is all of the college students who actually right now are not accepting having women in their groups, and he thinks that it's a very big concerning because he just don't like the way you look at people. He also wrote this letter where he lastly wrote that he didn't ever, never say one thing that any feminist haven't said before. So that's why he actually is a feminist, but in a way that he's comprehensive to the boys. So his pathos, he's using this of the groups where he just looked like the high school from 4th to 8th grade, where the girls were very afraid of being with the boys. And that is also being said to the college groups today, where just many groups aren't accepting the women's and they're just accepting it. And they shouldn't, because they should be in groups just like the boys. They're genders, they're equal. So, if we look at the circumstances of this text, well, we can see that he's trying to change the way we're looking at women. He just wants us to say that if you're a boy or you're a girl, that doesn't matter. You're equal and you should have the same rights to be in the groups, you have the same rights to learn, you have the same rights to show off your values. And just like he also said by his logos, that many girls are actually way smarter than the boys, but the boys just don't want to accept it. So, if we just want a quick look, we can see that the main themes going through this text is actually the hypermasculinity, and where we are seeing that the boys are actually not accepting the women's, but we also see that the women have strengths. And I think that's a very big opportunity for the women to have, because they can do things boys can't do. Therefore, the message of this text should be that you don't have to judge a book by its cover. So now, if you just go through the text now, we can see that in the very early start, he has written that Jared Malden, he started a calculus in the college, and he sees this woman that is very good at everything, and he wants, just by the very start, sets a point where women are actually just way better than himself. If we go a little bit further back in the text, we can also see that he is noting a bias even in children, where he's telling this about that the girls were actually afraid of being in class with all the boys. And why is he saying this? Well, he wants to say that the main theme, hypermasculinity, also just not happens in the college, they also happens in the schools. And that is also some of his ethos, to show that his argument is very strong, because he also wants to take parts from the other things, just like the college, he also takes it from the school. And therefore he's just combining them together to get a more strong argument and say that it happens all the time, all over again. So if we look a little bit further, then he can say that the letter that was only 254 words were actually so rich in words that he also say that, let me deviate from that, you say you are in fact unequal. And what does he mean with this? Well, he says that even being a man, he thinks it's not fair to be more right to be a boy than a girl. And that's why he is saying that as he is unequal in the fact that he has more rights than women's. And what about the title? If we look at the title, we can see that if they were unequal, engineering students' humble letter praises female peers' feats. Well, he's actually praises the female peers. In what way? Well, he's telling just right about how women are actually doing much better than the boys. So if you want to look at how can we make a further context in this, well, I actually have another text called Why Do We Blame Victims? In this text, there are actually an NFL team where a man called Martin, he is actually just too much of a blame, because he also allowed it to happen. And what the very important and very notable thing here is that it says, and should have behaved like a man. That's why they refer his blame to happen if he were a woman. And I think that we just kind of like connecting this to the text we have before, like we are unequal, engineering students, humble leather, prisoners, female peers, fears, blah blah blah. And that's why I think that how can we connect this? Well, it's connecting that people or women are just accepting of being not in a group. And I think that's a very big concern to have, because they are just genders, boys are genders, they need to be equal, they need to accept it, but they also just need to be in a group. Don't accept it, please.